Hello and welcome to the Built Environment Marketing Show. I am your host, marketing consultant, content creator and trainer, Io Abbas, and I specialise in working with built environment firms who want to make their mark in terms of their marketing. Today, I have a very special episode with someone who happens to be an architect at Squire & Partners, an illustrator and an educator and mentor. He is Chris Simmons. Chris is someone I've got to know via social media. So it was really nice to have an actual conversation with him because it kind of felt like I already knew him. One of the reasons I really wanted to chat to Chris was actually he's had a huge kind of really prolific rise on Instagram where he's literally grown his following this year from 2,000 people to over 20, which in a few months, he's done amazingly well. So in our chat, we delve into his approach to Instagram and what he feels that practices can learn from what he's done, and especially when it comes to creating engaging content. We also talk about how he manages his time to make time for marketing and with all his various hats that he wears as well. It's no mean feat. It's a brilliant conversation, so I'll let you get on with listening and enjoying the conversation. Bye for now. Hi, Chris, and welcome to the show. Can you introduce yourself and who you are and all the things that you do?
Yeah, sure. Hi. So I'm Chris Simmons. I'm an architect I call myself an architect, illustrator, and educator. That's kind of my personal branding tagline. Exactly. Yeah. So I've been qualified as an architect for almost a decade now. I've been at Squire & Partners. I'm an associate director there. So we're one of the largest London-based practices, founded by Michael Squire, who unfortunately recently passed away, and now headed up by his son and two other partners. And we do lots of large-scale, high-end residential offices, hotels, out of our very lovely department store home in Brixton, which some people might know.
I do, because I go to upstairs.
Yeah, we're very lucky. It's wonderful. So in all of my sort of side projects, so outside of my day job, I run Architects Instruction. So that is a mentoring platform. So we help sort of young to mid-career architects and interior designers to sort of progress in their careers, to kind of support them finding jobs and, with all that sort of thing, and then providing sort of one-to-one mentoring and all those sorts of things. And that's my kind of really big key passion and kind of talking point in architecture, really, is the kind of support of younger generations, mentoring, the connection between university and practice, and all those sorts of things are the main things I kind of talk about and stuff. And then alongside that, I have kind of two other streams of interests. One's kind of wellness and sustainability, and I have a kind of newsletter and a channel about that called The Well-Meaning Architect.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah,
It's my gosh.
It's not as big, but it's growing. And we also have a illustration side with a thing called Drawn, which is basically where I put all my illustrative work and take on sort of commissions from companies to do kind of illustrations and things. And I basically take on far too much. And
my next question was, how do you do all that and have three children?
Exactly. Yeah, my wife asked me similar questions. I think the thing I always tell people is that if I didn't, so I live in Kent, and I commute to Brixton every day, and I always tell people that if I didn't have my commute on the train, I probably wouldn't do all of these side projects and extra bits and pieces. And I think for me, it's kind of one of those focused periods that I can't do anything else in. I can kind of sit on the train and have a nap or something.
Or you've got a train journey, and that's like, I'll do this.
Completely.
I'll write my script or
Exactly. So that's where a lot of my drawn work comes from, and where lots of sort of the articles or the ideas for the videos and stuff sort of emerge from. So I don't think I'd be doing anything without that, because as you said, 3 young children as well. It's kind of a lot of stuff. But I'm quite good at time management.
I was going to say, I'd be like, you must be the boss with that lot. I'd be like, that's quite a lot. No, hats off to you. It's really cool. And I guess, the reason I kind of brought you on was because, Instagram. Yeah, you've grown a huge amount on Instagram in a really short period of time. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I started posting work on Instagram in lockdown. So I had a personal Instagram account, like a lot of people, put the old photo of buildings here and there on it. And then during lockdown, I found myself, I've always drawn for pleasure sort of thing. I've always been big into kind of illustration and stuff. And I started kind of connecting with other artists and illustrators on Instagram and really kind of got something from the kind of act of drawing. Like every day I would, kind of at the end of the day or when the kids were doing something else, I would kind of sit down for half an hour and just draw something. And it was that kind of really kind of cathartic thing of,
end of the day, just get something to do. Yeah,
completely. And just like having time for
routine,
myself.
Isn't it?
Yeah, completely. So I started doing that, and then I thought, I'll start posting them online, sort of thing. And I started specifically doing them on yellow tracing paper. So it's a very kind of architecty looking thing, the sort of canary yellow trace and black ink drawing. So I started posting them online, and they started getting quite good sort of interactions and stuff. And at that point, it was just about kind of having nice conversations with other artists, and they would do these kind of drawing challenges. So they would someone would post a photo, and then you would all the kind of artists around them would post their versions of that drawing with the same sort of hashtag. And everyone would kind of connect over their kind of mutual love of drawing and connection with other people. So it all sort of stemmed from there. And then obviously I kind of saw to scale. So Sana is a kind of young architect, or I think she was a part 1 or part 2 at that point, and she was posting about her experiences at university, and I kind of started to kind of see this and think, wow, that's a really for someone of that age, kind of showing people what architecture university is really like and that sort of thing is really incredible and interesting. And if I was back at university doing that, I would have found that incredibly interesting and helpful as well. So I thought maybe I've got something to offer from a slightly kind of I tell people
more
that
longer than tooth, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I'm kind of old enough to be experienced but young enough to be kind of relatable and relevant to people. So I think
still relevant,
I've got I hope at least. I'm on TikTok, so I must be relevant. So I started thinking, maybe I've got something to help people that are, a couple of years behind me, or, just starting out in practice, because that's typically in architecture, the biggest kind of hurdles you get are when you finish university and you go into practice and you just go, oh my God, what is this? This is nothing like I'm used to. Yeah, the disconnect, exactly. So I thought I could kind of, talk about those things. And so started posting on there and intertwining drawing work with kind of ideas and carousels and all this bits and bobs. And I think I was doing that for 2 years I'd sat at maybe 2,000 followers, which is fine and dandy sort of thing, but wasn't out there sort of thing. I mean, I was starting to have conversations with people and interesting things were coming together and stuff, and it was only really when I engaged with video content that it really sort of took off. And I can completely understand, Instagram as a platform was at that time was trying to push reels. It was the new trendy cool thing. So I think a lot of it is about timing sort of thing, because there's lots of people that kind of joined Instagram at the beginning, and when I was getting involved and they had 100,000 followers, and I was like, oh my God, how can you do that sort of thing? That's amazing.
You can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. You can't.
Exactly.
It's impossible.
So it's that kind of little bit of timing. So I started posting videos at a time when videos were really being pushed, I think. And it just kind of took off. So we're now at 22,500, which is very nice. But I think the videos in particular, I mean, one, it's kind of helped with my kind of camera confidence and things like that. The sort of technical know-how of editing things and putting things together and stuff, it's all very interesting. And, I'm like many geeky young boys that like getting into the details of things. So all of that hurdles of
Did you learn it all on
editing and stuff.
YouTube, or how did you
Yeah,
teach
yeah.
yourself it, or you were just doing it as you do? There's quite a lot there, isn't
How
it?
everyone learns everything is everything is YouTube videos now. So but I think it's one of those things that seems impenetrable until you do it, and it's like anything, isn't it? It seems a lot of work and a lot of hassle, but you get into the swing of it, and it's actually enjoyable. I actually really enjoy doing it. So yeah, it's been an amazing sort of progression, and that's again opened up lots of new doors and avenues that weren't available before, and yeah, and I think that's the kind of the crux of this whole social media thing that I kind of come away from, is that so many new opportunities have been opened up to me by putting myself out there, and it's a bit of effort and a bit of work and a lot of consistency and stuff, but it's just like I could just be sitting at home and doing stuff. Yeah, it's worth it. It's really interesting, and even just having nice conversations with people about different things I've said or different things that they've read of mine or watched of mine, and it's a connection point. Whereas before it would be something else, and this is kind of opens the door to new things. So sorry, that's a bit of a rambly answer, but
no, it's good. And so when it comes to your videos, so you do all the editing and scripting yourself, and so what do you do? What's your kind of process?
Yeah, so I think I've looked at lots of other sort of creators around the architecture space, and just
outside
general how people talk to camera, the length of the videos, the way they're sort of scripted, the way they're sort of segmented into the kind of intro bit, the body, the sort of conclusion bit. So I took a while to kind of understand how you put the scripts together and stuff like that. And to be fair, I did that thing that they tell you not to do, and just obsess about the kind of equipment and software and things. So everyone advises just do it on your iPhone.
Didn't, did you? I saw your setup. You shared it.
Yeah, no, completely.
And I looked and went, wow, he's got everything.
Yeah. So I ordered bits and pieces, one thing at a time, and my wife would get deliveries and be like, what's this? It's like, no, it's fine. It's on the company.
And you've got a really nice camera.
Yeah, exactly. And
I looked at it, I was like...
But that's the problem, is that you go down this rabbit hole of things, and I convinced myself that I couldn't do this thing yet until I had this one thing, and I couldn't edit the videos yet until I bought Final Cut, sort of thing. All these bits and pieces that everyone tells you not to do, I did it. Yeah. But it did also allow me to really kind of get to grips with how you put things together, how you script things, how you edit things, and I suppose there's nothing like learning on the job, but I did kind of do a lot of research because I'm that sort of person.
Yeah, I did. When I started the podcast, I did exactly the same thing. Like, you geek out and you're suddenly like, oh, how do you do this? And how do they do that? And I was listening to podcasts, and I was basically deconstructing them. So I literally go, oh, that's what their structure is, and this is the questions that you like.
I think there is something really fascinating about the art of it, because I'm an architect talking to other architects. We obviously all care about how things are crafted, how things are put together, and the quality of things. So, the intention is that you put something out that seems thought through and meaningful.
You're proud of.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think sometimes we can fall into the trap with social media of, just falling back onto our Canva templates and things like that. But, the reality is that I want to be putting out things that, like you say, that I'm proud of, that are specific to me, that aren't just generic. Because, all I see now is videos of AI can do this for you and AI can do that for you. And you can get a video script and split it into this. And, it's just like, but people will kind of see through that as well. It's all about this kind of authentic thing, and
And actually, do you know what? People can tell when you've put thought into it. I think my last podcast interview was with Lee, and she said, it takes us 6 months to do one of our major thought leadership campaigns. And she goes, it takes a long time. And you're just like, people aren't used to that anymore. It's like, well, do it as quickly as possible. And it's like, but that's how they produce really good stuff. It's just, it's that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
interestingly, I put a video online the other day about how long architecture takes. You know, in architecture, you have to take the slow road sort of thing, and it is that
yeah.
thing of like just appreciating that, you know, good work and quality things do take a bit of time. And
I did that.
I mean, it does sit at the opposite end of, you know, when social media is like, no, you have to be consistent, you have to post every day, you have to do this,
Yeah,
this, and this sort of thing. There are pressures, and I think, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons where I not fell out of love with it, but when I was doing the drawings, for example, it started as a sort of, you know, nice, happy thing. And then I would be like, no, I need to do this because I need to post. And it's that thing of,
so the love
you know,
stopped because you were there going.
exactly, because I have my wife is an amazing woman, and she's very rational. Like she's the perfect kind of yin to my yang sort of thing. Like she's the one that sort of balances me out. So I would be like, no, obsessing that I have to finish this drawing and post it and do this because it has to be on this date sort of thing. It's just like, why are you doing it? You know, if you're not
No,
enjoying it anymore, like why are you doing it? And I think there is a little bit about the sort of whole social media cycle that I think the video thing has kind of helped because it's been a new thing that's let me kind of really embrace something. But I think there is
yeah.
that kind of side to it that is kind of a hamster on the wheel type thing.
And you have to be careful not to fall out of love with it. It's like with a podcast, I always find that I do stuff in season, so I'll take a summer off, or I'll get to a certain stage and just think, I don't feel like doing these right now. Do you know what I mean? So I'll take some time off so that I still continue with the show, because otherwise you're like, it's a lot of work. And
completely.
you know what I mean? And you've just kind of, you sometimes just come off that treadmill because, yeah, plus you're probably moving at a rate that most people aren't. Like,
Yeah, I think that's the kind of, you'll kind of put the fear of God into you, aren't you? It's like, if you're not moving forwards, then what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like in the, we're kind of judged on the metrics of the follower count, and if that's not growing, then it's just like, oh my God, you know. But then if I think about the 2 years that I spent getting 2,000 followers, and I've got 20,000 in less than half of that time, it's like, well, then your metric changes, your scale of what's successful kind of moves, sort of thing. So
like
you're judging yourself against the whole.
You're like,
exactly.
Do I need that? It's like,
it's just like, what's the validation? When will I feel validated?
Your wife's like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. Wow.
Everyone needs the voice of reason. It's always a good thing. So
completely.
What would you say is your kind of biggest, I guess, marketing challenge has been in the past few years then?
So, well, I suppose for me, it's kind of, so my main channels are LinkedIn and Instagram. So LinkedIn I really enjoy. I really like the connections, and it feels a lot more personal on LinkedIn. And, you know, I've made a lot more kind of sort of familiar colleague-like connections in LinkedIn, because obviously everyone's coming in it from a more sort of business orientation and things like that. And then Instagram is a lot more, I would say, where I get my sort of mentoring students from. And maybe that's a demographic thing of a younger age slightly, or, you know, because the video content is pushed more. So I think my point is that the video has been incredibly successful on Instagram, but LinkedIn just sort of sticks two fingers up to my videos and doesn't give it. You know,
well, supposedly last year they were champion video, but to be honest, it didn't really seem to fly. It didn't. You didn't sit there and, like, if you do lives and stuff on LinkedIn, it's like you use an external tool to do it, which you have to do, like StreamYard, but like it like quashes your reach straight away. It just kind of like has this weird thing where you're like, it's been shown to 50 people, like that's the whole event, and you're just like, this is weird. And
I honestly don't really understand it at all.
No.
And it's kind of one of those weird dynamics that then you have to kind of work out is, what do you post differently on there than you do on the other one? And, you know, obviously you guys are experts in doing that, but I just kind of throw everything at everything and see what kind of sticks. I mean, the thing I kind of enjoy about LinkedIn is that I can just write things, and that's, I would say, my weakest and most difficult thing is writing. So I'm naturally, you know, I'm fine talking, I'm fine visual things, and I'm fine drawing. You know, I very much rely on drawing to communicate, and, you know, I write a lot about, you know, how I just draw to instead of talking, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So writing anything I really struggle with, and I always have. So I think short form writing I'm starting to get to grips with, and I'm, similarly, I've kind of taken like Justin Welsh's course on the LinkedIn posting thing,
Yeah.
and how you put together. It's really interesting because it kind of shows you.
Yeah, he's very structured and frameworks, isn't he?
Similar to kind of how I kind of studied the Reels thing. It shows you what works and what doesn't, and going down into the hooks and the paragraph lengths and how you break things up, and really kind of fascinating. But then once you kind of see inside the matrix, you kind of see the other people that have probably taken the same course because they're all writing in the same way.
And it hits you, right? And you see it everywhere. And then you're there going, actually, I need to mix this up a bit because I can see it everywhere now.
Yeah, completely.
Hi, it's Io here. And as you're a listener to the show, I just wanted to tell you a bit more about how I can help you get your built environment marketing done. If you're looking to set up a company podcast or trying to figure out what content you want to create for an amazing campaign that really engages your audience, or even if you want to get your business more up to speed in terms of how they approach digital marketing and how you get kind of senior level people on board with workshops and training, then do bear me in mind. I'm actually a marketing consultant, content creator and trainer, but I work specifically with built environment firms just like yours. So I know the best practice and approaches, but also most importantly, how to apply them to our sector. You can find out more about my work at abbasmarketing.com, or feel free to email me at io, which is AYO, at abbasmarketing.com. There's also links in the show notes too. Thanks for listening, and now back to the show.
I think the writing's always, a side that I've always struggled with, and particularly recently because everyone's telling me to do a newsletter, and everyone is trying to do a newsletter at the moment, and I've tried to write, so I've got a newsletter for Architects Instruction, I've got a newsletter for the Well-Meaning Architect, and it's one of those things that because I struggle with it, I am less consistent.
Yeah.
And obviously, that in this game, consistency is kind of one of the, the kind of key things. So when I'm not consistent, I kind of go, oh no, I'll just leave it this week, but I'll do it next week. And then, another week goes by and,
Have you ever tried like speaking into your phone and recording that for your newsletter? So like, rather than having to write, because sometimes what I do, if I've got an idea, and it's mainly when I'm going on a school run, right? And I'll have an idea, and I'll actually be walking through the high street, and I'll just talk into my phone, and then I just come back and I edit that, and that's my LinkedIn post, or that's my newsletter, and that's my outline. Right, and actually, if you find it easier, but if you find it easier to talk, then you just talk it through, and then you just do an edit, and it's like you're not starting from scratch. You know what I mean? Because I think quite often it's the blank page. Sometimes, and it's like you do so much talking that actually you can probably turn around and go, what are the 3 things I want to put in this newsletter? Actually, it's this, this, and this is what it's going to be. And then you just edit. That's a tip.
There you go. That's very good. But I think that works with my brain, actually. I think that sort of approach would definitely help.
Yeah.
Because I think like you say, is just going from 0 to something is for me the hardest bit. So.
And actually, my newsletter is probably the hardest thing I find to write. Like I write tons for LinkedIn and everything else, but actually, my newsletter, I'm always there. I'm always like rewriting the whole thing, or like it's the one that I probably have the most kind of questions running around in my mind all the time. I don't know why. I mean, I push out lots of content, but just stuff like that might help. It might be just a different way of starting the writing. So I always think it's easy.
Go. So everyone subscribe to the newsletter, and you'll see my.
You'd be like, oh my God, he definitely spoke this one, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. It's got lots of swear words.
How do you define successful what you're doing at the moment?
It's kind of interesting because I am a full-time architect. So I'm a full-time architect. A lot of my time, effort, everything goes into my day job, and it has to, and that's my role, and that's super important. And I think that's kind of my kind of always going to be my focus is being an architect, and that's where I want to be, sort of thing. So I feel like that is a success, and I'm happy with that, and I'm happy how everything works with that. So I think everything else is just kind of like a bonus, really, for me. It's just like really nice extra things to do. And I was having this conversation the other day because I don't kind of call myself a content creator or these kind of cool kid things, but I think it's my extra bits and pieces are more like content creation than they are kind of fully fledged businesses of their own. If you get me,
no, you enjoy them. It's literally done it for enjoyment.
So it's one of those things that I get. Yeah, in all honesty, I'm based on how much work I get from these extra bits and pieces. They are always going to be bits on the sides. They're not, to my mind, kind of viable separate businesses, but they are kind of things which I get so much from. Just being able to, help other younger architects do things, help when they feel lost in practice or in university, or support people is super gratifying. And obviously I charge a bit of money for my time, sort of thing, to balance it all out. But it is I mean, for me, that's the kind of metric of success in those sort of senses, is getting so much from it. And that's kind of where I started this other sort of avenue, which is the well-meaning architect, which is kind of trying to talk to kind of homeowners and people looking to renovate and things like that about architecture, what architects do, how people can improve their homes in a sort of sustainable and sort of wellness type things. And so that is kind of like, I've got one kind of lens which kind of talks inward at architects and people I'm familiar with, but also, I'm also trying to talk kind of outwards at people that have an impression of architects which might be wrong, right, or somewhere in between, sort of thing. Because however much how many bloody LinkedIn posts I talk about architects being kind of misunderstood or not valued, or all this.
But you've all got to be part of changing that process, though, haven't you? And that thing, and using normal language that people actually understand and stuff completely. Like that.
I think it's moving forward, but there is that kind of, there's still that sort of subset of architects which are navel gazing type, big language and misunderstood geniuses and artists and stuff. And I think if the one thing I can do with some of my work is to kind of get away from that idea and just show that they're all just normal people trying to do good jobs and help things. And but there are lots of people doing good things about that. There are a growing amount of architects that are a lot more open on social media. And I think that is kind of one of the kind of joys of the social media side of things, is that things are shown a lot more, like just being able to see behind the scenes and how things are actually put together, and a lot of the mystery is kind of taken out of it. And it's, there isn't this kind of gatekeeping thing of you can't see behind the curtain because then we won't be able to charge you money for it. It's more like we're going to share how we work and why we're special and why we're good at what we do, and you can be involved in the journey
completely. And it's that whole kind of storytelling of your origins, what you're doing, your process, and because otherwise you're leaving it up to people to kind of decide what an architect does, which is why people just think it's just drawings. It's like you should do so much more. You can give advice right at the start to make sure that brief's right, or that you're asking the right question. There's lots of kind of richness that you bring to the whole process. But I think until people start articulating that in a way that humans can understand rather than other architects, it's just not going to land. But it is great to see that more and more people are doing that as well, because it's just like we need it. We definitely need it.
Completely. And I think university has a lot to blame for all of that. I mean, I love architecture university. Like I absolutely loved my time there. Like I love all the theory stuff. I love all the geeky things of just that sort of inward looking stuff. I'm really into it. But I think I also am able to balance that with the realities of what practice is like, what getting clients and programs and being instructed and dealing with things on site. It's always that disconnect between the two, and then that disconnect becomes projected outwards, because there's still there's kind of between university and practice, even the people in university don't quite know what it is like to be an architect, and the things you're taught in university aren't quite the same things that are necessarily relevant in practice. And it's that thing of like, if the students being taught about architecture don't quite know what it's like to be an architect in practice, how the hell are clients or people that aren't in there going to be understanding those things? And so people get so stuck in that kind of education system that then the only sort of validation we do is kind of look to our peers. All of our comms and websites and things are all just made out to be impressed by other architects. There's so many impenetrable architecture websites and things like that, and it's without stopping and kind of going, who is this for? It's like,
it's like if you don't know where to click, you can't actually find any information.
Completely,
and
it's like, what is the point of guarding this thing if ultimately architecture is a service-based industry? You're providing a service for somebody who wants to either make money through developing a site, or wants to improve X or Y or solve a problem through doing Z sort of thing. Why is it so bad to kind of talk to those people or to address yourselves to those people?
It's helping them. It's not about you.
We're all kind of bonkers and backwards with everything. It's kind of strange.
It's very interesting. No, I'm writing websites at the moment, so I'm deep in the. It's always about them, not you. So, what advice would you give to a practice or people or individuals who are looking to grow an online presence? Maybe on Instagram.
You see a lot of architectural content on Instagram, which is, again, nice pictures of nice buildings. And that's great. And I think that would have worked a while ago on Instagram for me, back in the days when we were all impressed by a still image. But putting a couple of still images into a video, I don't think is quite going to crack it these days, even if you put it to one of these cool tunes that all the kids are using. But it's
point at my building.
I've never done one of those.
It's all my schools.
Exactly. So my point was that I think having a personality and putting yourself on camera is really important. And I think especially if you're like a small practice and you're trying to sell yourself as the designer, as the person who the client will be working with, you're presenting yourself, your small team, and it's about the person and about the skills and the ability and the advice and things like that. So I think if you can take a leap and be brave and stand in front of the camera and talk about design and talk about your work and talk about the buildings and and also include a couple of nice pictures and stuff, I think that's the way forward for me. And it obviously breaks down the barrier, because when I phone up Studio XYZ sort of thing, particularly if you've got a name which is a brand name or something like that, it doesn't have that, it's kind of devoid of personality sort of thing. I think it's a people connection thing, we want. There's I can't remember her name, but there's an Australian. She's an architecture and interior designer from memory, and she does videos of her just similar to this, just sitting to the camera and saying 5 tips about doing a utility room or something. It's a bit like super specific. But she's done hundreds of them, and she's got a following of about 200,000 followers or something.
Because she's really useful.
Yeah, and it's those things of like, it sounds a bit mundane, but actually that's really, like, if I'm designing a utility room, that's really bloody useful, And so someone will see that. Yeah, completely. And it's all stuff that we kind of know and think about in the process, but it's something that a client might not. And there's kind of like, half of your brain says, oh no, I can't tell them where to put the toilet, because then they won't hire an architect to tell them where to put the toilet. And it's like, well, if they're going to do that, they're not going to hire an architect anyway. If they're in that mindset of I can do it myself, then they're not your client. There's only maybe you can sway them 5%, but they're the wrong people. but the people that can see you giving your advice and say, oh, that's a really useful thing, I wonder what else they can help me with, if they're that thoughtful about this kind of thing, is super engaging. And showing that kind of skill set and articulating it in a kind of clear, punchy kind of way, like, speaks volumes to clients. It's going to break down that barrier. It's going to show that you kind of know what you're talking about, that you're willing to kind of share the information. And for me, it does kind of so much of all that kind of front end stuff that you would do in trying to find an architect. It's not just about, finding someone that costs the right amount, finding someone in your local area. You're making, you're kind of bringing yourself into their living room and kind of solving those sort of miniature problems to then kind of take on the bigger problem. Because a lot of the times people don't know what they kind of want anyway. It's about kind of opening that kind of idea.
So funny you said that, because I was on an advisory board yesterday, and it was for a consulting type firm, and it was just so interesting that they hadn't realised that bit where they were sitting there figuring out that brief for that person, or what the right brief was so valuable. It's probably the most valuable, and they just weren't talking about it. It's huge, and I was like, people don't know what they want. And they don't. And like, they'll come to you and go, it's a marketing challenge. You're like, no, it's not. It's something completely different. And I think, and I think it's that part, and that's where the value is for people. It really, really is. So, yeah.
It's kind of the weird thing, isn't it? Because architects are always particularly good at looking at the bigger picture. I think that's one of our really good skills, is that we can kind of look at things that are kind of that big, but then we can also, look at things from a building or a city-wide or a, political wide sort of problem sort of thing. And when it comes to all of this side of things, it's like we're so kind of obtuse in our kind of understanding of it. And I think it does hark back to that traditionalist architect that, the RIBA years ago said you weren't allowed to advertise. So lots of this, people have got this thing in their head that, oh no, it's either bad or crass, or
we don't people over there. We don't need to do that.
Yeah, completely. And it's such a strange kind of thing. And if architects actually kind of open their mind to it and just kind of accept it and move forward and use all their kind of design skills, all the ways they think and communicate about ideas, and we're all kind of visual thinkers and communicators and stuff. Yeah. So we can be bloody good at this stuff, and it's kind of like, once you kind of embrace it, then I think it's going to all kind of open up, and there'll be some really good stuff. But I think at the moment there are people doing interesting things, but it's growing, I suppose.
Fantastic. So I look forward to seeing more architects doing more interesting stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming onto the show, Chris. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks so much for listening to the Built Environment Marketing Show. Don't forget to check out the show notes, which will have useful links and resources connected to this episode. You can find that on abbasmarketing.com. And of course, if you like the show, please do share it with others on social, as it helps more people to find us. See you soon.